sweeter?
No one.
What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online show. Zach Albaverdi and Nick Del Torre here. Hope everybody has enjoyed their week. A lot of news coming out on the recruiting front, on the baseball front. The Gators advanced to the Super Regionals. We'll get you guys ready for that on this show with Colin Taylor from Gamecock Central. We're definitely going to get into the Swamp Kings documentary that's going to be coming to Netflix, and then certainly some news on the hoops front, as well as Portal God Todd has added another player to the roster. Nick, how you doing, my friend?
We're doing well. It was a busy weekend. Had that if necessary seventh game, which kept me busy on Monday. But at this point of the year, you're just happy that they're still playing baseball. 299 Division I baseball teams, and only 16 are playing baseball anymore.
Yeah, it's it got a little dicey there. I had to show up and show my magic and prove our message board posters like Micah Gator. Let them know that, listen, I can bring the magic charm when needed. So I'll say some of that.
It was a tough ticket this weekend. Did you get a ticket for this weekend? It's sold out in 20 minutes on Ticketmaster.
Yeah, I did not. So I'm gonna show up and probably hang out on the berms and have some beverages and have a good old time. So we'll obviously get to that later in the show, and we're going to dedicate more than 5 minutes on this episode. But definitely want to kick things off with the huge recruiting weekend that the Gators had to kick off June. 17 official visitors. Nick, that is the most that the Gators have had in the last 20 years at the very least. Could be a school record. You usually don't see OV weekends like that at UF. We've seen weekends where there's been a dozen official visitors, 10, 11. McElwain got all the way up to 15. But Billy Napier set the mark at 17 official visitors. And this is not just a one-off. There's going to be 14 more coming in this weekend, 16 more right now scheduled for the weekend after that. So, Nick Del Torre, give us your opinion on kind of how they started with a bang, but also your reaction kind of to the weekend just in general.
It's interesting because Florida, they changed the rules. Florida can host still. What's the number, Zach? 52, 56?
56, yes.
You can host 56 official visits. Players can go on more than the 5 they were allowed to. So a rare move by the NCAA that favors the student and the student athlete. But I think Florida's plan, and we're still learning about Billy Napier. Last year, there were a handful, maybe probably you can count them on one hand, official visits during the football season. And the reason for that is, well, a football game, while you want to get guys to see the atmosphere, to see Florida LSU, Florida Tennessee, Florida State, you're not talking with the player, really. You're not getting that one-on-one time. You're not going to get him down in a meeting room and do some chalk talk and run him through plays and put cut-ups up and say, hey, this is what we do. This is how we see you fit. The coaches, along with the players, are in a hotel until the game. They get to the game, and all week they've focused on one thing, and that's winning that game Saturday. So Florida wants to avoid official visits. Now, with the way the schedule works, the National Signing Day now, Zach, is December. I know that we call it early signing day, but that's December is National Signing Day.
The coaches don't.
And then you've got late signing day, the one in February. That's late signing day. Whatever's left is there. Everyone's committing in December. So if you're not going to, or you want to avoid having official visits during games so you can have that one-on-one experience, then you have to do them now.
Yes.
So I think that it's maybe not necessarily Billy and his staff are revolutionizing the way that recruiting is done. I think the timeline and what they are trying to accomplish has changed. So it's great to get 17 guys on campus. Would you have liked to seen a commit? Sure, but it's the first weekend for official visits. guys, I'm not trying to push guys, specifically guys that have offers from Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Clemson, Ohio State. You're not trying to push those guys and ruin a relationship because you wanted to get someone to pop on the first weekend. So that's, I think, been the big gripe that I've seen among fans is, well, I don't care, Zach. They could have had 400 guys or one guy. They didn't get any commitments. So I didn't know, outside of one player that maybe we expected who would commit this weekend that didn't. I think you're going to see guys, have the process play out. I do think that Florida kind of has a really good on-campus experience. And that's really what they keep telling us and keep saying is, once you get them to campus, we have so much to show them and so much to offer. It's just getting them to campus, which they were able to do these first 2 weekends.
And we'll get into some of the things that they showed them. But Nick, we've got to, I think, address and unpack more of what you've talked about, which was as excited as I think a lot of fans were to see the amount of official visitors that came, which was, again, the most in the last 20 years that we've seen. The other top 5 marks were, again, 15 official visitors in the 2015 class that Jim McElwain brought in. That weekend included guys like Lamar Jackson and Antonio Callaway. Of course, Lamar went to Louisville. And then you had some other weekends in the 2019 class. Mullen had a weekend where they had 14 official visitors. And then there were 2 weekends, one under Mullen and, one under Muschamp, and then one under McElwain, where they brought in a dozen official visitors. That's the most, the top 5 that we've seen in the last 2 decades. So, and Billy Napier also had 11 in the last cycle, he and his staff. So in the last 20 years, Nick, the Gators have only had double-digit official visitors for a weekend 9 times in the last 20 years. 9 times. And Napier and the staff have done it twice in back-to-back cycles. And they're going to do it 2 more times this month. So it shows you how much work they're putting in. I can't. I think it's important to point that out. Now, how many guys are they going to sign? How many are they going to get to commit? We had a great thread from one of our posters on the Gators Online message board that broke down all the teams in the top 15 in the recruiting rankings for the 2024 class, how many official visitors they had for the first weekend of June, which was the start of the quiet period. I don't know why they call it quiet, because there's nothing quiet about it. But that was the first weekend that schools could host official visitors. And when you look at the top 15, the Gators had the biggest weekend along with Georgia. They also hosted 17 guys. And there was only, I think, 3 or 4 schools on this chart that we had broken down at Gators Online that had programs that landed commits that weekend. Clemson was one of them. Obviously, they were in the news a lot. But there weren't. It wasn't like there was, half dozen schools on that list. And to your point, Nick, when you're recruiting guys that have offers and official visits scheduled with schools like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, those guys are going to take those trips. They're not just going to show up the first weekend of official visits and say, you know what, it's so great in Gainesville, I'm just not going to go anywhere else. That's not happening. Now maybe there's some occasions where they can pull that off. But so that's, I think, a couple things on folks wondering, well, how does Florida's weekend compare to others in terms of how many commits were landed? I think another important thing to note is how the Gators did in the last cycle. They had 55 official visitors, 1 short of the limit, and they signed 28 of them. So their hit rate was 50.9%. So as the class played out, they ended up getting those guys. And if you remember, Nick, it was around this time last year where there was a lot of frustration and criticism from fans and even some national media folks that were saying the Gators are not doing well enough on the recruiting trail. And this was early June. And then by the time Friday Night Lights rolled around and the first week of August, everybody was eating crow. And I know we don't remember that, and everybody focuses on what have you done for me lately. But I think to think that this staff is going to have 47 official visitors in June and not land any of them is preposterous.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here on the first week of June, freaking out, melting down, being hit by pieces of the sky.
Because TJ Moore went to Clemson. Let's be honest.
Clemson's putting together a good staff, good
Shout out to
class.
Dabo. They're going to do that.
Florida's got our number 4 class in the country right now. I can't imagine it wasn't this bad this early for Mullen. So I wonder.
Yeah, that's what's funny is last year when everyone was freaking out in June, Nick, Florida's class was like in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So it was somewhat.
Yeah,
I guess you understood it.
You've got your guy. You've got DJ Lagway. He continues to recruit and help you recruit. I think you just have to let the process play out. Now, listen, it's probably good for our bottom line that people are angry and want to yell about it. But to me, it's so early. We're talking about June, and a lot of the guys are going to get these multiple official visits. It's not like you stop talking to them after they officially visit you. It's like, as they leave their official. All right, well, let us know if you're going to pick us after the rest of these trips. It will be interesting to see as everyone starts doing this. Florida State had a bunch of guys on campus. Alabama had a bunch of guys on campus. They're doing camps, which then get guys on campus again for 7-on-7 camps. So to me, it'll be interesting to see how, typically it's, you want to be the last visit. What we see in the transfer portal, you don't want to be the last visit. Is that different from high school recruiting? Is that changing now? I think we're still learning a lot about with the calendar changing up and moving towards December. I think we're going to see recruiting change, and a big part of that will be what happens with this class. So Florida had a jam-packed week 1, a jam-packed week 2. If none of those guys end up coming to Florida, then I would panic. But I think you're going to have to see this play out where guys are taking 3, 4, 5. Now they can take 6, 7, 8, 9 official visits.
Yeah. And I think, too, we have a great feature, obviously, at On3 with the RPM. And you can get a feel for where the Gators stand at this time, according to recruiting experts. And of the 48 official visitors that they have scheduled, right now they're the favorite in the recruiting prediction machine for 4 of the visitors from last weekend and 8 more of the upcoming visitors. And that's just, again, according to predictions at On3. Of course, things can change, but that just gives you a sense for where Florida stand with some kids. And if you guys were following along with Corey Bender and Keith Niebuhr's coverage at Gators Online, you guys know all this stuff and where the Gators stand with a lot of these guys. And shout out to the Gators Online community. We had a live running thread, Nick, and that thing did 100K, which was I've never seen anything like that. We had everybody contributing to it, and really Keith and Corey were carrying it. So shout out to those guys. We're going to have more stuff like that throughout this year. Imagine what one of those threads can do on a weekend where they get some commits, right, Nick?
We might have had 200 if someone popped.
We might have. So I think it also helped that a couple guys stole the show. And I do want to mention this before we start to preview the Super Regional with Colin Taylor. And that was Billy Napier and Austin Armstrong pulling out some stops on the first OV weekend. We saw last year, Nick, they debuted the blue Ferrari. I think Jaden Rashada was the first one that got a chance to, step foot in that. And obviously some new toys that were brought out this past weekend for official visits. Now, before I get into the vehicle, it wasn't just that. The Gators debuted their state-of-the-art Swamp View production studio for the first time with official visits with football recruits. They've used it with obviously programs on campus. They've used it with some of the official visitors for the basketball program. But this is the first time that we've seen official visitors kind of get a video from Swamp View, and we saw a lot of those guys tweet that out. That was new and dope and different than any other program has. And then they had this swamp themed photo shoot in the locker room where they brought in, sticks and moss and twigs and all this stuff. It was a cool setup. And then they also had a slingshot in the stadium, the slingshot motorcycle that was orange and blue, kind of sand that it was set up on, kind of a beach scene. So that was neat. But the ride that I think stole the show, obviously, was the Maybach. And Coach Billy Napier brought out this Maybach Benz that I started riding around in last week. Some players spotted it on campus, and he brought it out for the official visits. And all the guys that came, all 17 of them, had an opportunity to ride around in the Benz SUV with Billy. Look, this isn't anything new or different or special. I think it's been publicized a lot about maybe some of the rides that recruits take with Saban and some one-on-one time that they get with him. That's kind of a feature that they have at the official visits to Alabama. So Billy's doing that as well. He's just driving around in a Maybach. And
Billy Ricky Rose Napier.
That's right.
Maybach music.
Yeah, they gave him the nickname Maybach Billy. Nick Del Toro, what was your reaction to the Maybach?
Yeah, it's an impressive car. If I'm a 16, 17-year-old, I'm loving it. You got the lights in the ceiling. Look like I'm looking up at the night sky. It's an impressive car. It was funny to see the players. One of the videos that came out, Billy was asking hey big dog, what do you want to listen to? And the players are saying probably making them listen to that parental, the edited version of the song. Listen, Florida's got Billy
doesn't cuss. If you guys don't catch Nick's drift there, he's not a guy that swears.
Yeah. It's Florida has it must be nice. It's nice to be the head coach of Florida. You get a free Mercedes in your contract, and hey, that's an upgrade.
Yeah, just be like,
from a regular Mercedes, which is already a luxury car.
I know, to just be able to hit up the dealership and be like, hey, I need a new car for the summer. Can you get that Maybach?
Look at that one. That's $200,000.
And for the record, for the haters out there, the man didn't rent it for the weekend, like with his own money. He actually has some perks as the head coach at the University of Florida, and then one of them is he can drive around in a Maybach.
It's not the Miami Hurricanes yacht.
So
paid for by the hour.
That's correct. I think they would pay by the hour maybe to see Austin Armstrong work karaoke. Nick, that was that was another feature that we saw from this official visit weekend. Shout out to DeAndre Robinson's mother. She shared this video for all to see on social media. I'm not sure what night they did karaoke, but Austin Armstrong was working the crowd, singing the Ignition remix by R. Kelly. He fumbled the lyrics during the chorus, but then he saved the performance with the dance move.
I don't know if he saved anything.
I mean, the crowd went crazy. What do you mean? I mean,
sometimes you encourage bad behavior because it's entertaining.
I will say, Patrick Toney is not doing that, I don't think. And
I've never heard R. Kelly lyrics in such a Southern accent, though, so that was interesting. It's the remix to Ignition.
Yeah. I would say Ty Grantham wouldn't be doing that. It just shows you, we talk about the energy and some of the stuff that he's brought. That's a good example of it right there.
Yeah, and part of that is just being down to earth, being human. Listen, he knows he's not a good singer. He has to. He has to know he's not a good singer, but you're participating in the event. You're making people feel like, okay, this coach is attainable. He's reachable. He's personable. He's certainly not going to win The Voice or American Idol, but he's up there having fun, and we're having fun, in the night together.
Yeah, and I also think too, I mean, the fact that they have him out there, in that sense, and he's just willing to kind of put himself out there, and we've heard so much about his recruiting prowess and the way that he goes about relationship building. I know that he was really involved in the recruitment of RJ Moten. He was kind of his primary, and when he committed during his official visit, Awesome was so excited that he hit him up the next morning at like 7:30 to wake him up, kind of still ecstatic. So I just think that he has brought a lot of what maybe was needed from just a personality change, not even so much from just Tony, but even the last guy as well. And again, he's going to have to do a good job on the field with the X's and O's dynamic of it. But I think to see him be able to have fun on those official visits, even if he's not the greatest singer in the world,
hey man,
it's a welcome
change. If you're good on the headset, I don't care what you're doing on the microphone. You got to be good on the headset Saturdays, and you can do whatever the heck you want, on your free time or on official visits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to switch gears here and
talking baseball before the last 5 minutes. I finally got it. Took all the way to super regionals, but we finally got baseball out of the D block. We're no longer just squeezing it in there, Zach.
No, I mean, listen, it's that time of year. This team deserves it, obviously, and we're also fortunate to be able to stay in network and be able to talk about the Gamecocks with our very own Colin Taylor from Gamecock Central. Colin, welcome into the show. Appreciate you joining us, man.
Absolutely appreciate you guys having me on, and I can't wait to talk about what is probably the most up in the air super regional on the board heading into this weekend.
Yeah,
Florida and South Carolina didn't get the nice cushy road that LSU did.
No.
Thanks to the D1 committee. But before we break into this regional, just bring us back. You were there at Founders a couple months ago. What do you think South Carolina did well to get the sweep that weekend, and what can they take, or what can anyone take from that series, which happened a couple months back?
Yeah, South Carolina really did a good job working pitch counts. That's kind of been their identity. They walked, I want to say, 24 times over 3 games. They got 24 hits. They hit a bunch of home runs, a bunch of doubles, and kind of took advantage of what Florida was giving them. That was obviously without Brandon Neely, but South Carolina was without a couple big pieces offensively that they'll have back this weekend. So I don't know how much you can take from that, given now it's obviously on the road at Florida. Both teams have changed for better and for worse on both sides. So it's going to be incredibly hotly contested. And South Carolina pitched really well that weekend as well. I mean, Florida only scored, 8 runs or 10 runs over the course of 3 games. So they have to do that again. But this is I'm really excited to see how this one plays out, because you could tell me any option and I'd believe you at this point.
That's awesome. And obviously, like the Gators, they had to advance to get to this point. What did you see from the Gamecocks in their regional and just kind of, where they're at this point in postseason play? You're obviously trying to get hot at the right time.
Yeah, this offense really started to click. They got healthy. Again, Will McGillis played for really the first time in 8 or 9 weeks after getting his arm broken against Missouri in week 2 of SEC play. Braylon Wimmer went back to shortstop. They're now 37 and I want to say 7 in the games that he starts at shortstop. They got healthy, and that offense looked like it did through the first 40 games of the year, where they were number 1 in the RPI, top 5 in both major polls. The pitch, I mean, they were working pitch counts. They were scoring runs. They were going backside to the opposite field. I mean, the numbers back it up, but they very much passed the eye test as well. And that's something that, I mean, it's not Brandon Sprode, it's not Jack Caglione, it's not Hurston Waldrop, but Campbell and NC State did not throw bad arms at them. They saw some live arms. So you hope that can carry forward. But this is a team that in the 10 games leading up to the NCAA tournament, they scored 33 total runs, and they scored 41 runs over 3 games in a weekend. So a resurgent offensive performance, and you hope if you're South Carolina that can continue going down there to face, one of the more talented pitching staffs in the country.
What has been the resurgence of Cassis? And obviously, I was just looking at some of Florida's numbers, and obviously everyone talks about Jack Caglione. I mean, he's a home run shy of tying the BB Core home run record, which was set just last year. And then you look, and Wyatt Langford's hitting 379 and slugging 900. You're like, oh yeah, there's this guy too. So Ethan Petrie, the freshman, has been getting the bulk of the headlines, and he deserves them. But there's some other pieces that also South Carolina has that need to be successful, with Cassis being a lefty bat that I've kind of keyed in on.
Yeah, Cassis is a guy that he was hitting over those final 5 SEC weekends, including the SEC tournament, was hitting 212 and striking out a bunch. And yeah, not good. I would and he used the last week. They got eliminated on a Friday. No, maybe a Thursday. They got eliminated in the losers bracket round of the SEC tournament. So they had about 8 days between getting eliminated and playing that first round game against Central Connecticut State. And he kind of used that time to hit the reset button to kind of get back to what made him good, which was seeing the ball kind of deeper into the zone, putting good swings on it. And he hit a backside double. He hit a backside single in that first game, and then drove in 6 over the course of 3 and had RBIs in all 3 games. And when he's patient and working counts and not chasing, which was something he did a ton of down the stretch, he's a really important bat. And I think that when you put him, he hit in the 6-hole, 7-hole most of the weekend in that regional. And when he's doing that and you're not putting the weight of the world on his shoulders to be the guy, that really helps him and helps him kind of relax mentally. And you saw a little bit of that this weekend because if he's really one of their few lefty options, and when he's playing well, this offense takes another step forward.
That's awesome. And obviously, Colin, you mentioned the dynamic of this kind of rematch with South Carolina now coming to Gainesville. What are your just expectations for this weekend and kind of what South Carolina needs to do to make it to Omaha?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what they did, it'll be easier said than done because Florida's gotten a lot better and they're playing at home, but kind of do what you did last time. Work counts, get to the bullpen. That for the most part hasn't been the strength of this Florida pitching staff. The strength has been in the starters for most of the year. Get them out of the game early with walks, with extra base hits, with all that stuff, and pitch really well. You have to keep this lineup down. And against NC State in the regional, they did that. That was probably their toughest, closest game. And they went ahead and, Jack Mahoney threw 5 scoreless before giving up 3 spot in the 6th, and allowed that offense to kind of get going and work those counts and get to the NC State bullpen, and you saw the results. So very similar, stick to your approach, and then you have to get good starting pitching from James Hicks. You got to get good starting pitching from Jack Mahoney, who's been elite down the stretch here on normal rest. And if you do that, I think South Carolina feels good about their chances, but like we said, it's easier said than done against a Florida team that's been really, really good this year.
And you mentioned Jack, and I think the pitching staff has been really good. But then one of the questions I have for you, and we just posted it up today, would be about Will Sanders. And he's been just an absolute terror to the Gators in his career. What would you do? I know that we don't have anything from Coach King, but what would you do if you were the manager this weekend with Will on the mounds?
Will did let it slip in his availability yesterday, kind of what the plan might be. He said James Hicks and Jack Mahoney are going to get games 1 and 2. I'm of the if it ain't broke, don't fix it train.
Yep.
Where that's worked for you the last couple weeks. Keep it going. They're going to kind of use him if there's a big spot in games 1 and 2 in a super, use him, get a high leverage outing out of him out of the bullpen. But he needs his time to warm up. He's a big guy that's really big on his routine. So it'll kind of be a situation where it's a close game and you just need him to get warm. And if he doesn't pitch in games 1 and 2, I think that it'd be really tempting to start him. And I think that that's probably where they're going to go if it gets to a game 3 and Will hasn't pitched yet. But Matthew Becker is the only real lefty in that lineup, and he pitched really well against Florida. Florida has not done well against lefties offensively in SEC play, so that's an option as well. But it's really tempting to start a guy like Will Sanders if it gets to a game 3 and he hasn't thrown yet.
Florida would love to not see him, I think.
And I think South Carolina would love to see him on the mound at some point this weekend as well, looking like he did last week.
I haven't had the opportunity to go to Founders yet. Need to make that trip up. Zach and I will be up in Columbia this fall for a football game. Maybe they'll be practicing or something. We can get over there. But I think you have been to Condren. Maybe that was 2 years ago.
That was last year. Yeah.
Last year. What were your thoughts of the ballpark? And with tickets being sold out in 20 minutes, I drove by the Hilton, which is on the same road. And there was a lot of cars, more cars than I would normally see in the parking lot. I'm wondering how many Gamecocks fans were able to jump on Ticketmaster and snatch some of those. But I'm expecting a big crowd this weekend.
Yeah, I love that ballpark. It's one of the nicer ones. You're seeing the arms race in the SEC trickle over now to baseball. Florida's built a new one. Kentucky just built a new one. Obviously, Founders was the kind of the crown jewel when it debuted in I want to say 2010 or 2009, and everyone's kind of caught up to it. So I really enjoyed it after being at Florida's old ballpark.
Keithan.
Yes.
May she rest. May she just rest.
Yeah, I am very, very happy that Florida built a new one. They needed it. But, yeah, it's really, really nice. And I'm expecting a good contingent of South Carolina fans, especially players' parents and friends to get down there. It's going to be a lot of fun because, I didn't realize it until I started delving into the numbers. I believe this is both programs' first Super since 2018. So two fan bases that are accustomed to getting to the Supers. Now, Florida's made more tournaments since then, but two fan bases that are very accustomed to getting to Super Regionals and have kind of been starved for that. So I think you're going to see a good contingent of South Carolina fans.
Yeah, Kevin O'Sullivan talked about that. Florida, before he got to Florida, had been to 4 College World Series. He did that in his first 8 years. He made it 7 in his first 12 years, and then hasn't been back since 18. Hadn't been to a Super since 18. I think he's got more of an appreciation. There's 299 Division I college baseball teams. There's only 16 playing right now. And for the success that these two programs have had, you kind of lose how special it is to be playing baseball on this weekend, and it's only a disappointment if you're not. So I think there's some renewed appreciation, probably from both fan bases, to not be wondering who's playing on the Cape and who's in the Northwoods League right now, worrying about getting tickets to a baseball game instead. Yeah,
this is a South Carolina fan base that would have, from a fan base perspective, would have been pretty happy moving on and doing a different thing coaching wise last year. And this was a big year for Mark Kingston in terms of that, and needing to save his job might not be the right word, but there was a lot of chatter about needing to make a deep run in the postseason. And to his credit, he went out and mined the portal and added some really impactful pieces, and they got older, and this freshmen last year who are now sophomores have developed into really good pieces. And yeah, it's funny because Mark Kingston came in 2018 was his first year, and they go on a run, and I still maintain if they had gotten matched up with any other team but Arkansas in that Super Regional, they probably would have gone to the College World Series. And you lose to a team that was a dropped pop fly in foul territory away from winning a national title. So, and they haven't been back since. They had the team to do it in 21 and get bounced from a regional. They didn't make their postseason in 2019, and even last year had a losing record last year. So this is a fan base that's really been starved for any sort of postseason success, and they're kind of soaking this all in, getting as close to Omaha as they've been in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I've always maintained South Carolina has a really, really good and smart baseball fan base. So I will not be surprised to see Garnet and Black at Condren Ballpark this weekend. But yeah, very good. I'm bummed out I wasn't able to make the trip up. As I told you, Colin, a lot of wedding planning stuff going on now. And if my fiance is listening to this, she'll say that I haven't been doing any of the planning. I've done my share.
Yeah.
You've monitored some things.
I'm a CEO.
Yeah.
I'm a 30,000 feet above, just making sure everything's good.
When I got married, it was very much of every Monday, I want you to hand me a list of things that you need me to do, and I will take the week and do those things. And then next Monday, you'll give me another one, and I'll do that. And that's how I operated with wedding planning, and it went smooth.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
I was probably gonna have that, and but it was like just a one list.
Yeah.
And she just started doing some of the stuff off my list, which
That's
was fine.
Hey, I'm cool with that. It happened to me a couple times too.
I always get assigned things, and then she just does it.
Yeah. Hey, as long as I can go out there and say, well, listen, you never gave me the chance to do it. I'm cool with it. Like, hey,
look, I was ready. I had plans. Big,
it was in my mind.
Thursday plans.
Listen, I can't control when this kid commits or when this assistant decides to do that, or if news breaks. Like, the yard's going to get mowed when the yard's going to get mowed, or anything like that. So I've been there, done that. Got the T-shirt.
Yeah, I got the T-shirt. Yeah, my fiance is the biggest South Carolina Gamecocks fan in the world. This weekend, she does not want me spending potentially 2 weeks in Omaha, Nebraska, which is decidedly not St. Augustine, Florida.
Yes.
Right before our wedding. So, sorry to the Gators Online listeners, but the future Mrs. Delatorre, big Gamecock girl this weekend.
Yeah, I had to have the conversation with my wife of if they win this, I have to go to Omaha. And she goes, well, when will you be back? And I go, that's a really, really good question. I don't know.
We don't speak on that.
As long as they keep winning.
I've been twice, and once was 16 days, and the other was 5.
Yeah, so you never know. I've heard stories from the beat who were there in 10 and 11 when they won it, and 12-2, about just trying to find any and every laundromat possible to go and just do laundry just to make sure you had clean underwear at that point. So it's a time.
Well, Colin, speaking of stories from the beat, before we let you go, we would be remiss if we did not ask, did you get an opportunity to cover Steve Spurrier at all?
Ooh, I came on the beat when I was in school, his last full year. So I was like half on the beat his last full year and half on the beat the year he up and left, like halfway through. So I've been in a few Steve Spurrier press conferences. Yes.
Do you have a favorite Spurrier story that you can recollect, or a moment that
Hey, sports writer.
Yeah. How we doing? Hey, media boys. They lost to Tennessee in 2014.
Oh, yes.
And Spurrier, noted lover of the Tennessee Volunteers, he comes in. They blew like a 21-point lead. Tennessee ties it in the fourth quarter with like 21 unanswered. South Carolina loses in overtime. And he comes in and he's looking at the box score. And he just kind of like mumbles for 45 seconds. And he goes, y'all saw the game. Y'all don't need to ask me any questions. Gets up and just walks out. And that was like one of my first games that I ever covered, like the home press conference. And so I'm like, is this happen all the time? And so that's my favorite, my first and really my favorite Steve Spurrier. I remember him just walking out of a press conference like 45 seconds in because he didn't want to answer any questions.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is the only team that would elicit that kind of press conference. A loss to Tennessee, he doesn't want to talk about it specifically in that kind of fashion.
Yeah, no, it was brutal because they scored like 45 points and could not stop anybody that year. And Spurrier was irate walking out of there with his quote unquote Sprite that he liked to drink after games.
Yeah, you guys saw it. We don't need to talk about this.
Yeah. Oh, it's on YouTube. Go look it up. The Steve Spurrier walks out after.
I remember when it happened. But you had a front row seat, so that's.
Me at 19, 20 years old in college trying to cover a press conference, and I'm geeked up to talk to Spurrier, and it lasts 45 seconds, and I was like, what just happened? And everyone's like, yeah, that's never happened before. So I was like, I thought it was like me or like how we operated all the time, and no, it was just Spurrier being anti-Tennessee Spurrier.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, maybe he'll join us when we come up there to Columbia. He'll probably hop on that jet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make his way to his old stomping ground. So listen, Colin, we appreciate the time. Thanks for giving us some perspective on the Gamecocks baseball team coming to Gainesville, and also Spurrier story. We always love those.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate you guys having me on, and it's going to be a fun weekend down there, I think.
Absolutely. And just let folks know where they can follow you and read your work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Gamecock Central, part of the On3 network with you guys there. Just type in Gamecock Central. It'll take you right there. You can find us on every social media just at Gamecock Central. And then you can find me on Twitter at Colin, Collyn Taylor, on Twitter to follow all of our work that we'll be having down there in Gainesville. We got 2 writers on the way there now to cover that Super.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we appreciate it, man. Look forward to this weekend, and look forward to maybe catching up with you in Columbia this fall, man.
Hey, that sounds good. Come on in, and we'll take you to a fall ball scrimmage, and I'll take you around town.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Appreciate it, Colin.
Awesome. Take it easy, y'all.
Take care, man. All right. That's Colin Taylor from Gamecock Central to give us the goods.
I forgot the Founders is so old now. I mean, 12 years. 12 years. I mean, it is. You know,
I mean, that's going to be in the Heaven or Center in 10 years is going to be that.
Yeah, it might already be.
That was a great Spurrier story. I remember when that happened, but I can imagine wide-eyed Colin at 19. Be like, what?
My first press conference, Will Muschamp yelled at me, called me a church mouse. So me and Colin.
Oh, man. That was a blast from the past. All right. Before we switch gears here, I do want to extend our baseball conversation even a little bit longer, Nick, because we got to talk about how they rallied from that loss. Had to win 3 in a row. That is not an easy position to be in. How did they do it, and what did you think of some of the coaching adjustments and obviously the way the players pulled through?
Yeah, I'll spend more time talking about pitching, but I think the adjustment offensively, Michael Robertson he's just going through it. He's a good baseball player. I think at one point he's 0 for his last 29, 0 for his last 31, 32, something like that. You had to get him out of the lineup. But heading into the regional, Kevin O'Sullivan was talking and using words like, we just hope he can lay down a bunt. We just want him to have a 6-pitch at bat. And I'm like, these are not the goals you need to be having in the NCAA tournament. So they took him out. He's been kind of a defensive replacement and a pinch runner late in games. Wyatt Langford is more than capable of playing center field, where Robertson was. And then you get Richie Schieckhofer in, who I think any offense you're going to get from him is good. He was a .330 hitter at Rutgers in the Big Ten. Hasn't really played much at Florida. I haven't been overly impressed with his bat, but he plays a good outfield. He had a weird mental error in his first game. Some of that might just be some jitters, but I think he'll be fine in the 9-hole. He's a guy who can control the bat a little bit. Would expect him to be able to bunt if Florida needs to bunt, and play a solid outfield, corner outfield. So that's going to be a spot that will look different. If you've been following the team, was Wyatt there and Richie in left with Tyler Shelnut in right. Pitching wise, when you went down 1-1, I thought Florida was done. I was like, they don't have the bullpen, the deep enough bullpen. I was like, I trust Tyler Nesbitt. Blake Purnell has been hit or miss, but you have to use so much bullpen to try to dig out of that hole. Where Florida had to play 5 times in the regional, when if you win all your games, you only have to play 3, and you're trying to find extra pitching. And what happened was Hurston Waldrop comes out noon on Sunday and gives you 7 innings. But now the bullpen's saved. You're able to get a little bit of a lead in that game as well, and use Nick Ficcarota. So you haven't used Cade Fisher, Brandon Neely, Ryan Slater. You get into Saturday, and now you're starting Cade Fisher, only the second time this freshman has started. And if this was an interview for a weekend spot, consider the application accepted. Cade Fisher goes out. He throws 7+ innings, gets into the 7th, and then you're able to go to Abner and Neely after that. And then you get Ryan Slater in Game 7. Ryan Slater, after however long the rain delay was, 5 hours last year for that Oklahoma game. After they come back, Ryan Slater comes in the game and gives up the home run that ends up being the difference between winning and losing in Game 7 and going to a super regional. And he has to wear that for a year. He has an opportunity in another Game 7 to go out and, hey, we need you to pitch, and we don't need you just to get 3 innings. Ryan Slater at that point had already pitched twice on the weekend. His third appearance is now a start, and he goes out and gives you 5 innings. Then you're able to go 5-2-2 and close the game out with Brandon Neely. So it was, I wrote after Florida lost that they would need a Herculean effort from their pitching staff and from their bullpen, and that's exactly what they got with the performances from Waldrop, Fisher, Neely, Abner, and Slater, and really, really cool to see. I'm sure Ryan Slater remembers that feeling watching that ball leave. I forget the guy's name now. Peyton Stovall, watching the ball leave Peyton Stovall's bat. And it's definitely a different feeling going through the high five line after a game that you started and win.
Yeah, man. And it's just, I mean, the way that happened for them, for Texas Tech to win that game so late like that, and just like the emotional toll that could have taken on Florida. And they just bounced right back, man. It was very impressive. It was, it's what champions are made of. And I think that they kind of showed that. And obviously, coming off of that SEC championship, to get knocked out in the Gainesville Regional would have been just awful. So they're still playing.
1 of 16, still playing baseball. And you've got to like Florida's chances. What did they lose? They lost 2 SEC series all year. Lost 2 weekend series all year. This is what Florida is set up for with their frontline pitching of Brandon Sproat, Hurston Waldrop, and Jack Cagliano. And this is what they're set up for. Now, that doesn't mean they'll win. This is one of the 2 teams that beat them on a weekend series. I think Florida plays better at home. Obviously, every team does. South Carolina is on a different level of that, though. I think they lost 7 games all year at home. And at the point where Florida went and played them, they had lost 1 game at home. So for me, it sets up well for Florida, but you can't just roll the balls out there and drop the bats on the field and think, well, we're Florida and we're playing at home, so we're going to win.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work. And I think obviously coming off of the result in Columbia, this is going to be a motivated team. So looking forward to seeing how it plays out in Gainesville. Make sure you guys are following along with all of Nick's coverage at Gators Online. If you haven't taken advantage of our promo, do it, because you'll be in Nick's threads, getting his baseball knowledge and scoop. You'll be on the message boards this weekend, getting it on the recruiting side from Corey and Keith as well. So definitely make sure that you guys are taking advantage of the promo that we have right now. You can join Gators Online for just $1 for 3 months, or you can get 50% off of your first year if you're a new subscriber. Want to give a shout out to our new sponsor for the podcast, that is My Perfect Franchise. Andy has already been on our site and on our message board for several months. I think, pretty much from the start of Gators Online. And then now we're going to be able to talk about his company on this podcast platform as well. So if you are ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, or if you're looking for a side hustle while working your current job, or simply if you just want to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy can help. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner, and he helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, and time to commit. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net, or you can call or text him at 404-973-9901. And definitely encourage you guys to do that if you've ever thought about owning a franchise. And if that's something that's up your alley, Andy can definitely help you with that. And also want to give a shout out to Prairie Dental Center as well. Doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades, has developed a deep understanding and knowledge of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems. If you're having dental concerns or you just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of personalized care options to meet your individual needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. Nick Del Toro, we saw Twitter just go nuts over the weekend as Brandon Seiler revealed on social media that the documentary on the 2006 to 2009 Florida Gators football teams is officially coming to Netflix August 23rd. And we've got a title as well. Swamp Kings is what it will be called. And it'll be a week before the season opener against Utah, which just happens to be Urban Meyer's old school. So what a way to get not only college football ready for the season, but certainly Florida fans specifically who will get to get this documentary and I think this look inside this era that they've always wanted, Nick.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to me. Our friend Pat Dooley was part of the filming. Some guys, I think Percy Harvin is not in it. I don't think the Pouncies are in it. But you're going to get to hear from Tim Tebow, Major Wright, Ahmad Black.
Brandon Seiler, Brandon Spikes, those are the guys we've confirmed. Brandon James, he's another guy we've confirmed. I'm pretty sure Dallas Baker will be in it. And hearing from Urban, I think this was an important quote, and I'll get into more of his comments, but he said, the most important thing is when you see the interview list of the people that are on the show, it's the people that should be on the show. I do want to note that this documentary is going to be debut on the Untold series. That's what it's part of, and they've done the Malice at the Palace. They've done some other great shows. They got the rights to do this documentary in terms of, I guess, the footage from the University of Florida and some of the behind the scenes stuff that they now have access to. My understanding is that this documentary was going to be done no matter what. Mm-hmm. So if you are Urban Meyer, if you are these coaches and these players, do you want somebody else to tell your story? And Urban initially turned down Netflix. And then he spoke this week on the Buddy Martin show about kind of changing his mind and deciding, you know what? There's, been so much said about those teams, so many comments. And as he said, quite honestly, ridiculous comments about the team. So he said, I'm going to do this because all I care about is honoring them. And we're going to get a look at the 06 team, 07 team, the 08 team, and the 09 team. And a lot of storylines in there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there were some great stories. Those were some of the most competitive, driven individuals, hands down, no argument. If you listen, you always remember your first time, and 96 will always be special. Our Urban Meyer years there's nothing that rivals how successful they were. Spurrier won a bunch of SEC championships, but Gainesville, Florida was the epicenter of college football for a 4-year run.
It was a dynasty.
Dominated college football. Megan Mullen was upset because Dan was getting yelled at because they won by 30 and they should have won by 42. Those offenses were unbelievable. There was some bad stuff that happened. I'm interested to see how much is covered because you can tell your story, but like they say,
look at you, Nick. Look at you.
There's 3 sides to every story. Your side, Zach, my side, and the truth. Tony Joyner was on those teams. He's currently awaiting a murder trial. Aaron Hernandez's stuff was well documented, during his lifetime. Like there was some stuff going on that the University of Florida does not want their name attached to, despite how good the football team was, despite guys like Major Wright, Ahmad Black, Tim Tebow, and surely countless others who are doing stuff in the community and being great people. So there's stuff that Florida wants to shine a spotlight on and put out there. But there's a lot of stuff that probably has been shoved away into a deep, dark corner. And hey, no one's ever found out about it. So what was this documentary crew able to find out? What will they put out? And I don't think, the people interviewed, while they are able to come and tell their story, I don't think they're getting, final cut, final say on what makes the cut. So I'm interested to see, some of those topics that are off, maybe we're off, off of the cutting room floor, or that Florida would like to be on the cutting room floor, that maybe make it in.
Yeah. And you mentioned one former player, Tony Joyner, who I think it was actually reported this week that he's reached a plea deal with the state attorney's office on the years-long murder case involving the death of his ex-girlfriend. So, there's a lot of unfortunate stories and I think unfortunate, futures that these guys had after they left the University of Florida. And, Jesse Simonton from On3, he wrote a piece about, this upcoming documentary, and it was called Swamp Kings, Why Netflix Florida Gators documentary could be an all-time classic or a total dud. And, his, premise was, like you just said, Nick, how much of this is going to be addressed, covered, discussed, unpacked, because there's a lot. Now, Jesse happened to be going to the University of Florida during this era. So he was on campus, and you just see him run through some of this stuff. I mean, obviously, the first thing everybody goes to is Aaron Hernandez. And he had some incidents while he was at UF, but obviously, the things that he really, that really stained him and obviously led to what happened to him was all after Florida. But at UF, you had the, Jamar Hornsby incident with, he had over 70 fraudulent credit card charges in 2008. Ronnie Wilson had the AK that got fired off, and he was booted from the team for a year, and then he got allowed to return to the team. Carlos Dunlap, the DUI that he got before the SEC championship game that he missed and Florida lost. There's the Cam Newton laptop. I mean, there's a lot there. So what are they gonna actually cover? What are they gonna avoid? What are they gonna not want to talk about? I can tell you from just digging around and asking around that, as you would expect, Aaron Hernandez was asked about by the producers of this documentary. And I think one thing that we will see is there's obviously been a lot of, shows and documentaries done on things that he did and kind of what's happened in his life. I think that this specific show and series might, focus on a different time in his life and show a different side of him, because if it is his players that are just talking about him, and I know that some guys are on camera discussing Aaron as a teammate, they're going to paint a different picture, obviously, than the person that he became after he left college, because that's not who that guy was when he was in Gainesville. So, but again, how much of that is focused and highlighted, how many minutes is dedicated to it, and how many things are they willing to go into or talk about, and what things are just off limits. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, you could write, this could be a 10-part miniseries. I don't know how they're separating it, or if this is a 3-hour documentary, an hour.
I hope it's not just one thing, right? They got to split it up into multiple shows, I would think. Every season should be at least one show, right?
It should be. It could easily be.
I mean, easily.
Could easily be.
I mean, 2007, even though that wasn't a great year, team record-wise, I mean, Tebow won the Heisman. So,
I was at that Outback Bowl against Michigan.
That was a great game, man. Gosh. And not a great game for the defense, but Percy Harvin and Tim Tebow went off in that game. Mm-hmm. But one thing that will not be covered, obviously, is Percy Harvin, at least from the horse's mouth, because I can report that he will not be part of the documentary. Urban kind of alluded to that. And if you haven't checked out that story, it's on Gators Online. Urban Meyer previews the Gators Netflix show, which he initially turned down. And he discusses, there's some people, unfortunately, that are not on the show that we tried to get in there, and for whatever reason, they aren't on it. But it's a celebration of some great football players and a great football team and a great university. That's what it is. Are there highs and lows? Yeah, but it's true. People keep asking me if it's a hit piece. I just know what it was. And yeah, there were some lows. We lost a few games. We had some issues on the team, but we also had incredible people, great football players, and one of the greatest football players of all time in the quarterback. So it's going to be a good show for Florida and a behind-the-scenes look at a nice run. So that is coming to Netflix August 23rd, and I'm sure as we get closer to that, as well as the football season, we'll get some more previews and I'm sure some trailers and stuff from Netflix as well. So be on the lookout for that. And as we wrap up the show, I want to give a shout out to rogueshop.com. If you have any issues sleeping, chronic pain, or anxiety and stress, Rogue Shop sells CBD, THC edibles, smokables, vapes, as well as handcrafted bath salts, soaps, candles, and topicals. Rogue Shop is a true small business. They have 5 employees make all of their products with their own cannabis grown in their manufacturing facility. Visit rogueshop.com. That's ROGUE shop.com. And as we wrap up this week's episode, I want to finish with the latest on the Florida men's basketball program.
Portal God Todd.
That's it. That is it. And he has struck once again in the portal as Zion Pullen. What a great name.
Like a thief in the night. Todd just takes what he wants from the portal.
He does. And he's added another important piece to this 2023-2024 roster. Now, Zion Pullen, he initially had a top 5 of Florida, Gonzaga, LSU, Michigan, and Xavier. So a pretty good company that the Gators were in for his services. And then he took an official visit to Florida this past weekend. And then he was down to Florida and LSU. ESPN's Jeff Borzello was all over the story. And then he reported on Wednesday, that Pullen had officially pledged to the Gators and will be transferring to Florida from UC Riverside, where he had a career-high 18.3 points last season, was first team All-Big West, and made 77 starts and 109 appearances there. So he comes over as the number 12 point guard in the On3 transfer portal rankings. Now, that is for the whole cycle or the whole offseason. That's not just what's available. He was the number 12 point guard, the number 56 overall player in the On3 portal rankings. Now, with that, the significance there is with his addition, Nick, Portal God Todd has now signed 3 top 60 transfers according to the On3 rankings. And Florida is only one of 3 programs that have done that in the 2023 class. The other 2 schools are Arkansas and West Virginia. So they are really getting busy in the portal this offseason. We already saw, some of the progress that they had made, getting big time players like Walter Clayton Jr. and the center from Marshall. But now you add Pullen to the mix, and that combo there with him and Clayton is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, and it'll be a totally new team. You think that they lost 5 to the portal, added 5 in. Whatever you saw from the Gators on the hard court last year, it's going to be a whole new team, a totally different team. And I think it all started with getting Riley Kugel to stay. And then guys saying, okay, I can play with that guy. That's for sure. We can be good with that guy. So I still stand by my statement that getting Riley to not go to the draft and to stay in Gainesville was the biggest recruiting move that Todd Golden and his staff could have made. And I think you've seen, not to discount the recruiting that they've done as a staff, But I think that's the biggest move, recruiting move and roster move that they had this offseason. And I think you saw it kind of play out with guys wanting to come and play with Riley as well.
And obviously, it was obviously a different dynamic with Colin, but they got him to stay their first offseason, and that was just as important. I think Riley brings a different dynamic, but I do agree with you, Nick. Like it's crazy to see how much the roster has turned over now. I mean, they only returned 4 players from last year's team. That's it. So then they bring in 2 high school signees who are already on campus. They kind of got to Gainesville a little bit early for off-season workouts, sooner than most basketball signees report to campus. So that's good. But I just think that last year, Todd obviously added some nice pieces in the portal. Not all of them hit, but I mean, Will Richard was a really good addition. But I just don't think that he really had the time to kind of have as much as other coaches to really go out there and recruit the portal. Remember, it was kind of more brand new too. He's still trying to get the lay of the land of Gainesville and his roster and his team. I mean, it was a lot. So I felt like he was pressed in the last portal period, trying to build for the last year's team. I think this year, with he and his staff having a full year and having plenty of time to really know what they needed and then go out there and get it in the portal, you see the results. I think that this is now where basketball recruiting is at. I've always talked about and expected that, high school football recruiting and specifically colleges signing like 25 kids in a full class was going to start dwindling down to like 18, 16 kids for some schools in some classes, because you're going to want to save spots for the portal. I think that in college basketball, that discrepancy is going to be even greater, and you're going to have even less guys coming in from the high school ranks. Now, that's different for some programs. There's going to be the Kentuckys and the Kansases and others that are going to land some of the 5-star studs out of high school. But I think Todd and his staff are going to look to make their money in the portal, and they've done a good job so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it changes college basketball rosters even more than football rosters.
No doubt. And then we saw Kevin O'Sullivan get busy in the portal as well, and that's a big reason why the Gators are in the position that they're in this weekend for the Super Regional against South Carolina. Make sure you guys stay locked to Gators Online, not only for that, but a huge recruiting weekend happening in Gainesville too. So we will be back next week to let you guys know how all those things played out. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Albuquerque.